YouTube Ozzico in the Goat House is back after Sunday's action. In week 4, I'm here giving my takeaways, going on some rants, going to rip some teams a new asshole. You know the drill here. Still got one more game, Monday Night Football, Rams 49ers. We'll be having live takeaways during that game on our Twitter like we do for every game. So follow that Twitter, a lot going on there. Super followers get bonus content. We got all kinds of activities and stuff going on with the Picks Leagues. Links pinned in the comments for that. Sponsored by the GLD Shop, who is supplying Picks League prizes, doing a giveaway as well. They have real gold NFL pendants, chains. I'm wearing the Vikings one right now. Very affordable. I have a code GOAT for 33% off. More and more NFL players are rocking their stuff every day, too. Some big-time players. So check it out. Links pinned in the comments. Let's move on to the recap, the takeaways for all these games. So Thursday, real quick, we stopped doing the Thursday recap alone. We're adding it into this video. We started that last week, but yeah, I mean, I'm usually, you guys probably know, I'm usually pretty strict, no excuses for teams, find a way to win. That's usually how I am. That's how I still am. But yeah, I'm going to take it easy on the Dolphins here because going into the game kind of beat up. And then Tua goes down, losing your quarterback in devastating fashion really affects the team as well, obviously. And then you're running out of corners. I mean, they're running out of corners, and when you're mainly a man coverage team playing the Bengals, who have the best receiver trio in football, it's a little difficult. Obviously, and you see that Waddle disappears when Tua's out. They have some sort of connection, so a lot of factors there. Just it's kind of a disastrous game for the Dolphins. Even though it was still winnable, they were still very much in the game, closer than what the final score shows. So it's a tough one, but you can't really have a lot of takeaways from the Dolphins on that one. The Bengals, they got to win. They clutched up at the end. They got to win. There wasn't a whole lot of big-time throws, but there was some here and there from Burrow to his receivers that really won the game. So credit there. But, this is a game the Bengals should dominate. The Dolphins quarterback goes down, and the biggest thing was they're running out of corners. What your receivers, you should be able to dominate this all day. But a mixture, again, of Burrow not having a lot of time and then Burrow or thinking he doesn't have a lot of time. So it's a good mixture of that. Can't really get the run game. Mixon had some good runs here and there, but he still, was he averaging 2-point-something yards per carry in this game? Just can't get much going there. So it's, a lot of people ripping Zach Taylor stuff. The crowd's booing him when they run on second down, but people don't understand anything really. Trying to get a manageable third down because what is going on in the field? They can't really do anything, so it kind of limits the play calling. But you don't want to pass, predictable, get sacked, not really get anything going besides some shots here and there. You're trying to make things more manageable, so it just definitely makes sense. So, they need to get a little more consistency going on offense there. But the only thing I didn't like from Zach Taylor was outside run on that fourth down early in the game, which I just don't like outside runs on short yardage. Sometimes, if it seems wide open out there, but Bengals take care of business, though. It's a much-needed win. Dolphins get their first loss. Tough one. We'll see when Tua can come back. Vikings and Saints. This game was pretty damn wild. In the London game, Sunday morning, excuse me. And it's a weird game because this game could have went a million different scenarios. The Vikings had control of this game very early. They go down there and score right away. They get the ball back, good field position, and everything's wide open. They're moving the ball easy. A big-time sack from the Saints. They had a couple sacks that were big-time in this game, but a big-time sack kind of took them out. And then they're starting at midfield again. It consistently was great field position. And it'd be one thing if they just couldn't move the ball. The Vikings offense was struggling to move the ball, but they were actually moving the ball, but they just weren't coming up with points, or they were only coming up with field goals. So that was maybe a little frustrating on the Vikings' part. The Saints defense was clutching up, especially in the red zone. Some of those sacks were big. Matthew had a big interception. It was a bad throw by Kirk, bad read. But the Vikings were able to move the ball. They just were not executing. More tight end drops in crucial situations has been a theme all season. Kirk missed Jefferson wide open. So, And the Saints, we knew the run game was going to be good against that Vikings defense, but the Vikings, if they would have executed, they could have taken away the run game from the Saints, and in that scenario, the Vikings would have won by a lot, but that's not what happened, obviously. And there's another scenario where the Saints are healthy in this game and probably win this game, so that's another one as well. The Saints were pretty depleted. They had an insane amount of penalties, and we'll touch on that a little bit more here soon, but they had 2 fumbles. Everything's kind of going the Vikings' way. Missing all those guys as well, and the Vikings are able to move the ball, but they can't capitalize, they can't execute, and so that's kind of a problem. They still find a way to win, but yeah, it's just unfortunate the Saints weren't healthier because they probably would have won this game. But then, yeah, kind of later in this game, some questionable penalties or flags. I guess the big one was Thielen going deep, which I think the next play they gave it to Jefferson, he scored, but Thielen going deep. Lattimore gets called for pass interference, and that was a massive call in this game because Vikings score on the next play. It's just huge. But it was definitely a questionable one too because, which I agree with, is a rare, to me, that I was talking about on Twitter, is that rare moment where I thought it should have been called on both teams, which it wasn't, because Lattimore initiated contact, kind of drove Thielen down the field. So absolutely that has to be called. But then Thielen grabs his face mask, so that absolutely has to be called. It wasn't, so it really should have been offsetting. Next play, Vikings score. So that was pretty big. The one play before that was questionable as well. They called something on Matthew, which I think they just missed the number because the ball was going to Thielen, and I believe it was a Debo. Whoever's covering Thielen was just all over him. So I think they might have got the wrong number on that. Either way, there should have been a flag. It just looked really bad because where they called it. But the play after that, deep ball to Thielen, they missed one there, obviously, with Thielen kind of grabbing the face mask or grasping it on Lattimore. So that ended up being a big one. But the way this game ended was crazy. The Vikings score. Of course, they missed an extra point to keep the Saints in the game, which is kind of what they do. The Saints hit a 60-yard field goal. What are the chances of that? It's a great kick. And the offense got going late, too. The run game got going, kind of worried about the Vikings defense. And the Vikings, finally Cousins takes a shot. Usually the Saints, they play a lot of 2-man under, so it's man coverage, difficult for corners. But usually the safeties are help over the top on that. But I think Cousins saw something on that bomb to Jefferson that they weren't going to be over the top. So credit to him. Finally took that shot, dropped it in the bucket. Vikings played for a field goal. I guess not the worst thing in the world because it was going to be like 24 seconds left at the end of that, and you got to make the field goal. He made it, but then, of course, they let the Saints get in kind of that field goal range, and then the 61-yard field goal hits the upright, and then after it hit the upright, it literally looked like it was going to go in, but it hits the crossbar. When it hit the crossbar, it looked like, if you were watching on TV, it literally looked, to me, it looked like it went in. So that was just a bare miss there. Vikings pull off a close one. I guess, maybe some sloppiness because it's in London. They got there late, but, man, they looked sloppy last week. Saints were missing a bunch of guys. The Vikings were on the better end of the penalties there, and Saints were fumbling the ball. So it's a win for the Vikings, a little sloppy. Wish the Saints were healthier. Hopefully they can get healthy next week. The Seahawks next, and that's not an easy one apparently. Browns and Falcons. The Browns really, I go back and watch this game, kind of, recap it in my head. It's Browns really have no business losing this game. And credit to the Falcons, they clutched up when they needed to on both sides of the ball. They ran the ball extremely well. They used a different collection of backs. Still a little scary, and especially in the red zone. They try to turn the ball over a bit. A little sloppy with the ball sometimes, but Mariota had one giveaway, I think, this game. And then they clutched up when they needed to. A massive sack in the end when we thought the Browns can go down and maybe tie the game. A massive sack to create a long situation, and Brissett throws a pick. So that was absolutely massive. The Falcons didn't do much in the passing game. Mariota barely threw the ball. He had some Justin Fields numbers going up there, and they still won. So that's kind of the good thing, but kind of goes back, and the Browns really shouldn't let this game get away. But a bigger reason is I don't love how Stefanski called this game, and that's kind of how it is with me and him. Throughout his career there in Cleveland, it's kind of hit or miss. Last week I thought he did a great job in the second half adjusting against the Steelers. I just don't like the way he called the game. Like, it's just sometimes how these West Coast system coaches work. They outsmart themselves. They kind of think a little bit too much, and that kind of it happens quite a bit with those types of coaches, and it's happening here. No way Brissett based on how this game was going, Brissett should have 35 throws while the running game has 35 carries, and no way it should be the same. You're a run-first team. That's the dream for you, is run the ball, keep the ball, control the clock. It's the dream, and it was working. It was working. I mean, Nick Chubb's averaging how many yards per carry? He's running all over him. Kareem Hunt was averaging a crazy amount of yards per carry, too. I mean, he's running all over him. He's just not getting enough carries. And you're having Brissett throw. And not that he had a terrible game. It was bad that he took that sack at the end and threw a pick, but just no way you should have Jacoby Brissett throwing as much as the carries that you have, especially when it's working. I mean, you could have won this game continuing to pound the football. And in a way, they acted like, I know they were losing a bit during this game, but they were acting like they were getting blown out. Can't run the ball anymore. It's over. We got to pass. Don't really agree with that. So they kind of just outsmarted themselves. I think if they just kept sticking to even when it got predictable, just sticking to the ground game, I think the Browns would have won this game. So, yeah, that was one they let get away, kind of like the Jets game, a little different fashion, of course, but maybe they play the Chargers next week, a team you can run the football on. Maybe they can get back on track, do the right thing there. But, yeah, that's the thing. It's some of those play callers like that. I had the same problem with Stefanski when he was in Minnesota. That's why I didn't love the hire for the Browns right away. He looked good. It was his rookie coaching year, which a lot of first-year coaches do. It just seems to be a thing. But it just seems like when something's working, it's like you go into the game insisting on one thing, and you're so insisting on it early in the game, but if it's working, you kind of go away from it. It's like saw that a lot, and when if the pass was working, they would go back to the run, even if that, it's kind of like backwards, just trying to think too much, outsmart yourself a little bit. So that was kind of my problem there, and it seemed to be a thing in this game too. But the Falcons clutch up. That's 2 wins in a row. I mean, the Falcons are a little sneaky. I don't want to fully buy in or anything because the passing game is a little sketchy, and they have some sloppy turnovers, and they get a little sloppy with the ball in the red zone specifically. It looks like you can run the ball on them as well. But that's 2 in a row, and they really should have beat the Saints in week 1. They really should have, and they had a legit shot to beat the Rams in week 2. I'm not going to sit here and say they should be 4-0, but there's a scenario where they could be 4-0. So interesting. Definitely interesting there. Next game. Commanders and Cowboys. Yeah, the Washington bad football team. They should probably change the name of that because that was corny. But that was because they're just bad right now. They're very bad. And look at the rest of the league. I mean, the rest of the league's crazy this year. It's usually crazy early in the year, but week 4, and there's still a lot of outcomes and upsets, and any team could win. And the Commanders these last 3 weeks on their 3-game losing streak have went out there and just kind of show that they don't really have a shot. They got no shot to win. They can't even find a way. So, and they're starting so poorly in these games every week. So, it's a really bad football team right now. They stopped the run all right in this game. Usually they have a tackling problem in that department. I guess not really. It wasn't, flawless, but they just can't. I mean, it's a tough matchup because it's in Dallas and it's a really good defense. So we'll give the Commanders that it was a tough matchup, but they just can't get anything going. The offensive line's not doing Wentz any favors. Wentz ain't doing himself any favors. The Cowboys defense was just too much. The pressure, the coverage in the secondary. Trayvon Diggs had a monster game. And the Commanders couldn't get anything going. And defensively, you're going to find ways. It was a little slow for the Cowboys at first. They were getting field goals instead of touchdowns, but they're going to find ways to eventually score, against that defense, and especially if the offense of that team cannot do much. So pretty straightforward. The Cowboys are a pretty good team right now. That defense is what is winning them ball games. Not to take anything away from the offense, because the offense is being called well. Very well. Cooper Rush is playing well. The weapons are doing their jobs. Not taking anything away from their offense, but the defense is insane. And the Commanders just can't get anything going. They start very poorly in games. Interesting matchup next week against the Tennessee Titans, who start better than anyone in football, but the second half they're probably the worst in football. The Commanders start so poorly, they get a little better with adjustments in the second half. That's going to be a weird game, so I'm kind of looking forward to that next week. Seahawks and Lions. Did much happen in this game? Yeah, a lot happened in this game. 48-45. Who the hell would have thought that? We know these are 2 weaker defenses, but Geno Smith and the boys, and Geno Smith, Rashad Penny, those guys, with that offensive line that isn't supposed to be so hot, they went up, put 48 points up. Who would have thought that? Geno Smith's playing great, very accurate with the ball. Looks a lot smarter than what we all kind of gave him credit for, at the line, knowing where to go, knowing which reads should be open, when it should be open. Things like that is what stands out a lot to me. Scrambling when he needs to. Rashad Penny, we saw at the end of last year, when this guy's healthy, he is a monster. I mean, the combination of everything, vision, quickness, elusiveness, the home run speed, and the physicality. Rashad Penny is actually special. He's a special back. I know it's the Lions defense, but you see Kenneth Walker getting limited carries, and it's because Rashad Penny's so good, right? I mean, Penny didn't even get that many carries. It's just the Seahawks, and you don't want to knock them for it. If they would have lost, maybe would have. If they would have lost this game, actually, yeah, that would probably have been the knock. I'm actually curious. It's kind of top of my head. I don't think, based on the game that I watched, that Penny got an insane amount of carries that you think. 17, it's probably less than I thought. 17, Walker got 8, actually a little bit more than I thought, but it's not a lot. Geno Smith ran 7 for 49, but Penny, 17 carries for 151 yards. So if they would have lost this game somehow, it would have been on not running the ball more, because they would have ran the clock more. You had control of this game, and the run game was working. But we can't sit here and rip them at all, because not only because they won the game, but the pass was working as well. Geno Smith was dealing. DK had a monster game. Looked like Jeff Okudah was on a most game. We saw that, last week against the Vikings. The Lions, had Okudah plus another guy on him. And even sometimes, if people looking at the All-22, they had a safety over the top of those two guys helping. And it was a little different against DK. They had one-on-one most of the game, and they exposed that there. So, the Seahawks found that and exposed that. DK had a big-time game, and Lockett had 91 yards. DK had 149 yards. Didn't come away with a touchdown, though. But, yeah, just a monster offensive performance there for the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, Tariq Woolen had a pick 6, too. That was massive, because look at the ending score. They only won by 3, even though it felt like they controlled the game more than this. So even though defense gave away 45, and they had that clutch moment, that was a bad interception by Goff. Other than that, he played pretty well. Had limited players available. Swift out, St. Brown out, Chark out, Jimmy Williams still out, obviously. Hawkinson seemed like he was big. Reynolds was big too. Jamal Williams ran for 108 while they were trying to come back too. So they're able to still kind of keep that run game in there. Hawkinson went for 179. I didn't even realize that. I knew he had a big game based on what I watched. So 179 yards for a freaking tight end. Pretty insane, and 2 touchdowns. But yeah, these apparently are 2 offensive teams. The Lions defense could actually be the worst in football. Kind of going back to what I said going into the season, kind of earlier in the season, the edge presence really isn't there. They kind of rely on that interior rush. Didn't get a single sack on Geno Smith, so something's got to be fixed there. It seems like the players they got are more like they want to go inside. They're better rushing inside, even if they're edge guys. So it's tough. But yeah, very poor defensive outing. It's crazy too, because a lot of people probably switched their picks. I thought about it. I should have done it. I hate switching my pick though, but because of the skill position players on offense that were out for the Lions, and that's not even why they lost. They lost because of their defense. So it's like, I don't think anyone was really expecting this. I think we knew their defense wasn't so hot. I did say going in the year that they're going to lose some shootouts. I don't know if I was expecting a 48-45 loss to the Seahawks, but when I said that, but it ends up being the case. They're going to lose some shootouts. They let one escape last week. Wasn't a big shootout, but yeah, it kind of hurts. If you're a Lions fan, if you're the Lions, it's got to hurt. You got to be thinking about last week. Like, yes, you just gave up 48 points in this game, but such a big missed opportunity last week that just kind of put yourself in this hole that makes this one even worse. So tough. Seahawks looking fine without Russell Wilson. Geno's actually playing better. He's playing better than Russell Wilson, and they got all the draft picks too. So that looks pretty good, I'd say. Titans and Colts, this game, in a way, was over from the start, even though why I say in a way, the Colts actually had a shot in the end, but the Titans won this game with the start of the game because they were scoring pretty easily. They scored 24 points in the first half. They're scoring pretty easily. They were making big-time plays on defense, and Matt Ryan continues to turn the ball over. The offensive line isn't the same what it used to be. Doesn't help that receivers can't get separation. They got one receiver carrying I keep going over this every week. The Colts just don't have enough right now. They just don't have enough, and it's just really ridiculous that they don't. But Just too many sloppy moments. It was 24-3, so a good comeback, 24-17. You had a shot to win, but how bad you were to start this game is why you lost the game. And the Titans are so good in the first half this year. They just keep trying to blow comebacks or do blow comebacks in the second half. I mean, they had 28 total yards in defense in the second half, or offense, in the second half. They clutch it when they absolutely have to. I mean, you see at the end where they can ice the game, they just go get a first down. So we know they're capable of doing it. So maybe it's a little frustrating that they kind of shut down this game. I kind of can understand just focusing on the clock a little bit because the Colts don't have enough offensively and they're very sloppy turning the ball over. The Titans have turned the ball over a little bit earlier in the year. I mean, I guess the Bills game was really it, but. So you don't want to turn the ball over. Turning the ball over will cost you this comeback, So I understand the focus. They just get a little too carried away with it. But the Colts actually had a shot. They're only down 17-24. They have momentum. The defense is playing all right. The offense is finally getting going. And then Jonathan Taylor fumbles when they're creeping up there, towards the red zone, which is a massive moment in this game. So I got to take care of the football there. He ends up injured too. I'm guessing he's probably not going to play on Thursday against the Broncos. The Broncos lost their running back, so a disaster. Shaq Leonard, I was watching him early in this game. Like, this guy is not right. He should not be out there. He couldn't, really get after people on angles. Like, he just wasn't right. And then he gets concussed then, too, on top of it. So he's probably going to be out Thursday. So it's just not good there for the Colts. They've been unlucky. The Titans as well. The Titans are pretty damn beat up. So we're not making excuses in this specific game. It's just been unfortunate on both sides, really, is my point. But yeah, I did mention it before the year. I didn't predict it, but I said there is a scenario where the Colts running game isn't as good as it was last year because of the RPO they're taking away. Carson Wentz offense, a lot of RPO in that offense, which opens up the run game for obvious reasons. I mean, when the team runs RPO, you got a game plan for it. You got to sit outside. It's almost misdirection in a way. We got to focus on both sides, and it can create some holes. And there was some massive holes for Jonathan Taylor and company last year. It helps that Taylor's a very good running back, very talented. But going into this year, you can't run RPO with Matt Ryan, right? You can't do it. Understandable, you can't do it. And the holes haven't been there. Jonathan Taylor doesn't seem the same. So I said this could be a scenario. I said this is a possibility before the year. I wasn't counting on it, but so far they can't really get the run game going. It's pretty interesting. They can't really get any holes going. But it looks like that running game, that running back group is kind of reliant on the big open holes in the RPO, which, I'm kind of knocking them right now. There's other running backs, Derrick Henry, in the league that, don't need RPO, don't need massive holes. So maybe we're a little bit on that. It's early in the season, a little bit too much on that hype train there. But there's talent, obviously, there with guys like Jonathan Taylor. I mean, Hines can play as well. It's just they're very, very talented. It's just a little interesting right now. They can't get things going, and they're just playing really sloppy football. So unfortunate for the Colts here. I mean, this is a must-win at home. Again, you're coming off of – I don't know how they beat the Chiefs. Well, the Chiefs got really sloppy at the end of that game. That's how. But, coming off that win, got to beat the Titans in Indianapolis. Titans are getting going now, so that's pretty good to see for them. And it looks like they're going to be battling the Jags for that division as of now. I still think the Colts could figure something out, but it's bad right now. It's really bad. But I guess that division's somewhat open there. Next game, Bears and Giants. As we projected, not a whole lot of offense in this one. And the Giants eventually almost ran out of quarterbacks there. They had to put Barkley and Breida back there. Barkley, Wildcat running back, and then Daniel Jones ended up coming back in, but they're kind of limiting what he could do because obviously he's injured. So and they still find a way. It's a good thing that was kind of late in the game, and they kind of had the lead there. But Barkley had another monster game. There wasn't a whole lot going in this game. And the good thing about the Bears, they finally kind of got Mooney going, but they just couldn't they got field goals instead of touchdowns. I mean, honestly, it's not saying much, but this might have been, was this the Bears' best offensive performance this year? Because they moved the ball. Again, they got Mooney going. They had some shots downfield. The running game has been good all year, but the running game was great again. Like they were moving the ball very easily. Herbert looks very solid. Maybe more Herbert, less Abner maybe. If I had to nitpick, maybe run fields more design runs. He's scrambling too easily instead of throwing the ball. That's a problem, and I guess that's racking up some yards. But if you actually design some runs, and try to get him to throw the damn ball when he needs to, then maybe it could be a little bit better. Right now, it feels like the offense, like it's a question. Was it actually better with Matt Nagy? Like, it's ridiculous that we're actually thinking that. That's a possibility. Not saying it's factor, not, but pretty crazy. But they actually move the ball. They especially early in this game, they're just ending up field goals instead of touchdowns. But just not enough in the passing game, I guess. Still not enough clutch plays. Like, when you need a big play, like a third down, you need to get in the end zone. There's just not enough there. So that's the problem. And they played a pretty good defense, though. But the Giants, overall had a pretty good defensive outing, and the offense did enough. Danny Dimes was a problem with his legs early in this game. That was a big factor. And he went down, so it's like, Bears might be able to do something here, because that takes away a big factor of the Giants' game. Tyler Taylor comes in, throws a pick, and then he gets hurt, but they're able to hold on there. And that last play, that lateral play was, I was dying throughout the whole thing, because might have been the longest one I ever seen. It would have been insane if they scored on that. Probably would have went wild. Next game, Jags and Eagles. Jags off to a great start in this game. The rain ended up being a factor. It really started coming down, ended up being a factor, but it was for both teams. It rained, and there's rain in football, so we're not going to make excuses for any team. But the Jaguars were affected by the rain, so I guess let's hope they don't have to play in too many of those this year, because Lawrence was sloppy with the ball. I mean, it was just sloppiness. It was a sloppy football out there because of the rain there, but it just can't happen. No excuses. It can't happen. But they're up 14-0 right away, moving the ball. They get a pick on Hurts. And it's very early in the game, but you're starting to think like, the Jaguars are really good football team. And they still might be a pretty good football team. They still might win that AFC South. They could be in the driver's seat for that. And the Titans maybe are coming, but and you're thinking like Hurts a little stop with the ball and interception. Like, oh God, is this things starting to go back to normal? I guess the Jaguars being dominant are normal, but I think people are probably thinking that. But then, the adjustments made by everybody on the Eagles organization, really, it's like the adjustments with the coaching, what they made on offense, defense, and the players kind of, Hurts snapping out of it, making big-time plays. Miles Sanders had a monster game. They saw something where they can run the ball. I think it's because the Jaguars are like, they were the best run defense heading into this week, and I think they're pretty good at stopping a run, but I think it's something with that Eagle. It's a different type of run when it comes to the Eagles. I think that, mainly because of Hurts, what he's able to. Actually, I kind of want to look at the numbers. I'm always curious about some of these numbers here that kind of went into play, but we had Sanders ran for 134 yards. I was curious on Hurts. Hurts 16 for 38. So that's exactly what I was going to say, actually, is what I was kind of getting into was that they have such a different type of run. The Jaguars are like, all right, we got to focus on Hurts. It's more of your outside, type runs. Let's keep a QB spy on things like that. And they did a pretty good job doing that. He ran for a touchdown. That was a good one, too. Absolute tank. Hurts is a tank. But I think their focus was so much on Hurts more, maybe the outside, that some of these runs to Sanders were almost unexpected in a way. You still got to do a little better job, but it just shows why the Eagles are kind of a game plan problem, because a good run defense, a good defense in general, and the Jaguars so far this season, had problems because it was something kind of outside of their comfort zone, and what they had to change things a little bit for. So that kind of shows the power of that Eagles offense and how you can kind of open other things up, and they do a really good job at kind of executing that. So the defense clutched up, and they started off down 14-0. They clutched up. They end up they sack Lawrence 4 times. They end up obviously forcing a lot of fumble. Reddick recovered 2 fumbles. Reddick had 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. So good day. I mean, they're all over. This defense has been feasting. Like the whole defense has been feasting. So Eagles remain at the top of the NFL right now. They're going to stay at number 1 in the power rankings. Spoiler. Jets and Steelers. There's just no way the Steelers really should lose this game. I mean, you had control, not the whole game, but you had control. Wilson's first game back, he's a little sloppy with the ball early on or throughout this game. Two interceptions, a little sloppy. The Jets are already thin on offensive linemen. They got another one go down. They got, the Steelers got to find a way to win this game. The Steelers are just a bad football team. They're missing T.J. Watt a lot, but they bring Pickett in for a spark. Three-pick Pickett ends up being. The last one was a Hail Mary, but 3-pick Pickett take Trubisky out because he doesn't really have that spark. He doesn't have everything going. I mean, Pickett did run in 2 touchdowns, so give him that. But those interceptions weren't necessarily pretty. And people making excuses or blaming the receiver, but I give it to you straight here. Those are on the Hail Mary won't count. The other 2 are on the quarterback. Throws a bomb downfield. Love it. Love throwing the idea. Way underthrown. Way too much air under it. Claypool has to come back, attack the ball, and then he almost gets it. The DB, it makes a great play and knocks it out. When if you come back for the ball, jump around 2 DBs, DB gets his hand on it. Asking a lot to catch the ball. But some people will say Claypool probably should have caught it or prevented the interception. But bottom line is, why was it intercepted? It was thrown up for grabs. It was severely underthrown, a lot of air up on it. Usually when quarterbacks throw the ball up for grabs, bad things happen. So you can expect maybe an interception. The second one did hit the hands of a target there, but you're under pressure, and it was kind of a panic throw to the sideline. Why don't you see quarterbacks try to make a sideline throw, far hash to sideline in those situations? Because you're under pressure. It's one of the hardest throws to make. There has to be the perfect amount of velocity on it. So Pickett panicked. It's his first start, so it's okay. So I'm not ripping him here. I'm ripping the people trying to make excuses. But so he panics, throws the ball, he lofts it. You have to have velocity on those sideline throws. Usually when you do that, it rarely happens for a reason. Well, usually when you do that, bad things happen. Probably could have been prevented from being intercepted because it hit the guy's hands. He had to go up and catch it, though. But usually you're very lucky if with those types of decisions, those throws are not intercepted. So the main reason why those are intercepted is the quarterback. But it's his first start. He was thrown in there, so I'm not going to sit here and say Pickett's bad. None of those things. Those were bad decisions to throw those balls in the way they were thrown. But can't sit here. If it was Trubisky, we'd be blaming Trubisky. If it's Pickett, for some reason people have that weird thing with the young quarterbacks going on where they try to find excuses. So, and everything I just said is not debatable. It's not debatable. So this is how it is. But he's gonna bounce back. Hopefully they got a tough schedule, so maybe they'll put Trubisky back in. But we're not gonna judge Pickett off this game, so I don't want anybody to get that wrong. We're not doing that here. He was thrown in second half. I'm just telling you what happened. And the Jets clutched up though. So enough with that rant. The Jets clutched up. We're kind of going back to Steelers too. It's like Trubisky hasn't been playing good. He hasn't had that spark. Like we're talking about that big play. But when he finally does something good, it's just the team's not helping. Last week he drops one in the bucket, Deontay Johnson. He drops this week, Deontay Johnson, ball goes through his hands, and it's intercepted. So he's not getting much help there either. But he's mainly not helping himself, so I'm not trying to make excuses for him. He's got to play a lot better, but a little bit of a mess there. And the Jets, another clutch win. They had that clutch win against the Browns. They found another way to win there, and they got injuries on the offensive line, but they still got those receivers making big plays. And Zach Wilson didn't play the best game. He had 2 turnovers, but that last drive he clutched up, some good ball placement. I honestly forgot who he threw it to get down the field, but it was behind the receiver, but it's exactly where it needed to be. I love when I see those throws. Like your average person's be like, it's behind him. Like, nope, that's where you got to place it so the DB can't make a play. So they clutch up and get that win. Breece Hall gets in. Reaches across the goal line. They originally called him down short. It was definitely a touchdown. Missed opportunity for the Steelers to go back to Deontay Johnson, which there's not a whole lot he can do. He had almost touchdown. When I saw that live, I'm like, he was definitely in. I think I tweeted it. Like, I think he was definitely in. I saw the replay. His toes were barely on the line. So that close. Missed opportunities for the Steelers. It's kind of what it is there. The Jets got 2 wins. First game with Wilson back in. They get a win. Another clutch win. I love the play calling of the team. I love their ability to fight back. So maybe the Jets are a little sneaky there. Next up, Bills and Ravens. Ravens had control of this game. For a lot of it, the Bills were sloppy early on. They start with an interception, little off target, but Knox kind of had to keep moving to get out there, or stick his hand, you kind of lean or dive. Instead, he jumped straight up, and I thought that was very strange. I don't know. I just don't like when I see that from receivers, tight ends. It's like, when I have to say, what are you jumping for? It's one of my pet peeves. Like, what the hell are you jumping for? So I don't know. That drove me nuts. For some reason, that's what happens. But just sloppy. Singletary fumbling the ball early, just not getting much going. Ravens starting strong. It's looking like the Ravens are going to beat their ass, but Ravens second biggest game of the year. The Dolphins and the Bills are just massive games. They blow the game on both of those. They blow them. They have them. They could be 4-0 and they let it go. So that's kind of a problem. Like, it's a very good team, and during the first portion of this team, like, they're dominating the Bills. They're looking good. They're a little bit healthier than they were last week. They're going to keep getting a little bit healthier, we think. So I'm thinking, is this team, maybe this team's the best in football. Like, they're getting healthier. The healthy Ravens, maybe they're really, really, really good. We know they're really good, but maybe they're really, really good. That's kind of what I'm thinking. But at this, and it doesn't end up being the case. They blow the lead. That's kind of what they're capable of doing that, though. That's the good thing. But if they're capable of blowing these games like this, it's like, how do we trust them? I can trust them in regular season games. Like, they should get the job done, make the playoffs. Right. But can I trust them in the big games, the playoff games? When you go in the playoffs and you play the best of the best, you play the Dolphins, you play the Bills, back to back weeks. You have to stay consistent. You can't make these mistakes. You can't, fold. Can we trust them to do all that and to get where they want to get, where they're capable of getting? So that's the problem there. Very good team, obviously, but that's the issue. The Bills were very sloppy early. I mean, that's the bad news. They're capable of being sloppy. The good news is they can overcome it because they're a very good team. How about Matt Milano? Just popped, man. Matt Milano's I think he's been the best linebacker in football. I don't know if that's debatable. I think he's been the best linebacker in football. He's been insane. Jordan Poyer, they missed him last week. 2 interceptions, a clutch one at the end there on 4th down. Really is clutch if you just force an incompletion there as well. But actually, no, because then the ball would you've been in bad field position. So, yeah, clutch interception there. So, big-time game there. Josh Allen made some big-time throws at the end. Diggs a little off in this game, I thought. But, the Bills, they could. I keep saying they could use another receiver. Like, if they found somebody else that's like, not even if they found somebody else like Diggs, like, it'd be over. Like, but if they found somebody else in between Diggs and Davis, because I think there's a pretty big gap, and bigger than maybe what people say too. If they found somebody in between there, they'd be a lot better. I mean, they would help them a lot more as well. So, just a random thought, but they clutched up in the end there. So that 4th down decision, I don't really like it. I didn't even realize it was 4th down. I'm kind of flipping back between different games. For some reason, I thought that was 3rd down when it happened live, but 4th down. So I was like, damn, Lamar threw a pick, but no, it was a 4th down. You got to try to make something happen. And people say, well, at least if he threw an incompletion, then the Bills would have to work the entire field. But that's not what you do. If 4th down, you don't throw the ball away, you don't throw an incompletion, you go for a touchdown because that's what you called the play for. You go for a touchdown. So I'm not putting that on Lamar at all. You're trying to make a play. That's what he's going to do. It's what he should do. But yeah, I just don't like that decision because it's obvious he didn't trust the defense. The defense has been sketchy this year, but they played pretty well in this game. I think you got to trust the defense in that scenario, but you have to. Take the lead, So that's pretty tough. And then Peters yelling at Harbaugh. That's not great. That's not something great for going forward. Harbaugh's still a good coach. It's a questionable decision, but for sure. But so that was tough. And the Bills go down there and they just need a field goal. Field goal doesn't tie it. It wins it. So. And credit to the Bills for going down there and scoring. But tough one for the Ravens. 2-2. They could be 4-0, but they're not. They're 2-2. They can't find ways to close these out. And it's not really. And sometimes people want to say Lamar Jackson's fault. It's not really his fault there. Chargers, Texans. The Chargers had control of this game, but the Texans started to creep back a little bit. Obviously, but the Chargers were lights out to start offensively. They had Texans defense kind of been really good through the first 3 weeks. And now this is kind of more like it, more what we thought there, but maybe a promising future still. But the Chargers kind of had their way with that defense. Eckler had a monster game in the end zone, obviously. Mike Williams, Herbert had their way with the defense. Not a whole lot there, to go over there. They played their Chargers offense type game, and despite the injuries too, so give them credit there. Defensively, they have some injuries there as well, but they started off strong. Davis Mills being a little sloppy with the ball early on, kind of dug themselves a hole, and he's been sloppy at the end of games. With the ball, they've been putting him in a tough situation, but at the same time, you got to take care of the ball a little bit better. It's been kind of costly, but the Texans fought back though. Mills made some good throws. They got the run game going. Dameon Pierce really got going. The Chargers really struggled to stop the run. I know they're beat up, but it was a thing last year as well. It wasn't going to happen in 1 year that they were going to go to a good run stopping defense. The run stop defense is bad, so that's a problem, especially when you play the Browns next week. But Dameon Pierce ran all over the Chargers there, so And then, Mills made some good throws, got Cooks involved, so that kind of helped them fight back. It just wasn't enough. They kind of dug themselves too much of a hole. That's pretty much that game. Chargers, really beat up, so that's the tough part, but able to overcome it in this game. Next, Cardinals and Panthers. This game was weird. It was a weird game. I was going to say, maybe it was a lot... it's debatable. I was going to say, maybe it was a lot closer with the score show, with the Panthers got a touchdown at the end, but the Panthers were winning a lot of this game. The Cardinals really couldn't get much going on offense. I guess they clutched up in the end when they needed to, but they had really good field position because fourth down stop, turnovers. It's just the main thing in this game was the Panthers could not score on offense. They scored in 4 minutes left. They could not score on offense. They scored on defense, pick 6. The offense can't get anything going. Baker misses some throws. He's not throwing the ball high enough, but the main problem is the play calling is just absolutely terrible. The system, the scheme in general is just awful. It's just so bad. It just doesn't need to be that bad. It really doesn't need to be. So, pretty much out on the Panthers. Pretty much done with them. I like the defense. The defense did enough in this game. Despite the Cardinals scoring 26, if you didn't watch the game, you wouldn't know. Defense played a hell of a game. I still think you can run on them. Not that Connor did much. Benjamin was pretty good with the little amount of carries he got. But I like the defense. I like Phil Snow. They should probably fire everyone right now, make Phil Snow the head coach. He can run a defense. So it's pretty bad. But it looked like they might win the game the way the game was going for a little bit, but I guess the Cardinals clutched up. The defense definitely clutched up, I guess. The defense had a hell of a game. They didn't, they shut it down. They locked it down. The only touchdown was the end of the game. So so credit to the Cardinals defense. You definitely give them credit. I think it's a lot of the Panthers offense is more of the issue there. If the Cardinals have been struggling a little bit the past few weeks for the Panthers not be able to put points on the board. The Panthers won with defense last week when they finally got that win, their only win. They won with defense, but early in the game, the Panthers defense was winning them this game. Burns making plays. Lavu, had that pick 6, obviously. And Murray's been his main problem through this year, and a play like that is the inability to read coverages, read defenses correctly. That is a problem. That is a problem going forward. They end up clutching up. They end up winning, but that's a problem going forward there. So, why they're a little slow on offense. But, a little bit beat up at receiver, and they're able to, clutch up. Obviously, they got more back, and they had Hollywood out there. But, they're able to find a way. And the defense played a hell of a game. It's just the Panthers feel bad for that defense, because the offense can't really do much. So it's a very sloppy game. It was kind of a shit show of a game. I think I was tweeting that. It was the Cardinals throw a pick 6. I'm like, the Cardinals are a shit show. And the Panthers doing their thing on offense. I'm like, no, the Panthers, the whole game is a shit show. So, Cardinals find a way in another one here, kind of like they did with the Raiders game. A little different fashion. Patriots and Packers was not expecting this to be close, and then you factor in, I was not expecting the Patriots to be down to their third-string quarterback, rookie Bailey Zappi, and it to be close. Went to overtime. The Packers squeaked by there, which really shouldn't be the case because not only because the third-string quarterback's in, but the Packers moved the ball. I thought they moved the ball all right. The passing game isn't electrifying like it usually is, but Aaron Jones ran for a lot of yards. A.J. Dillon played very well, averaging a lot of yards per carry. Dobbs dropped that touchdown, but he's pretty productive. They got Lazard's very productive. They're able to move the ball. Why was this game close? I'm trying to figure out why this game was close. The Patriots did have that delay of game that ended up being a touchdown. They still gave up the touchdown. Maybe the delay of game probably played a part, but so I guess maybe it didn't need to go to overtime, but it's just still, I was trying to figure out what made this. The pick 6 was massive. I almost forgot about that. Who picked 6 Aaron Rodgers? Who does that? Jack Jones did it. It was a very good play. Romo said it live, he ran the route for Lazard. I'd almost say he ran the route before Lazard. When you say you ran the route, I'd say, what did I say? I'm confusing myself. Before, I say when the corners run the route for the receiver, it's usually a very bad route in the receiver and a good play by the DB. I just think Jack Jones kind of read the play before it happened there, so he kind of ran it before. So this is a really good play there. I guess Lazard could get out of his break a little sooner. I think Rodgers was expecting that. So that was massive, I guess, to make it. I guess that is another reason. And the Patriots had success on the ground. Damian Harris Ramondre Stevenson. I mean, Zappe for getting thrown in there, for being a mid-round guy, for that college offense that was just, everything was schemed up, play in the first year, having to get thrown in, play against the Green Bay Packers defense. I mean, give him some credit. I think he did all right. There's quarterbacks that have been starting that are playing worse than him right now. So I actually thought that was somewhat impressive. Not that he did anything spectacular, but it is kind of spectacular for everything I said, like given to what's going on there. So they had a shot to win. It's like one of those, like you have a shot to win. You had to lead for a bit. It was almost like the Patriots lead tie. So you probably should win the game, but at the same time, it's like you put up a good fight with a pretty good team there. So that was somewhat impressive, to say the least. The Packers found a way to win. It wasn't pretty. They found a way to win. It is weird, though, because you're able to move the ball, sort of. Maybe they could have ran the ball a little bit more. You have Aaron Rodgers. That's why it's tough. I think it was like a similar situation to what I said with the Brissett with the Browns. Like, why are you carrying the ball the same amount, or why are you passing the same amount as you're carrying the ball? You should be carrying way more. In this case, the Packers should have carried a lot more. They should have ran the ball a lot more, but you also have Aaron Rodgers, so it's tougher to give them that knock, But they found a way. You got to win those games. They did. The Patriots had an opportunity, though. Next game, Broncos-Raiders, 32-23. As good as the Broncos' defense has been, I mean, they've been a top-tier defense, and here they're giving up 32 points to the – well, one touchdown was on Melvin Gordon, but 32 points to the struggling Raiders. It's like, man, like the Broncos last few weeks been pretty disappointing because of their offense. It's like at least we can trust their defense, right? And then they give up 32 here. Josh Jacobs really had his way with the Broncos D. It just seems like that physicality element is a problem for the Broncos. I mean, we saw it in week 1 with Rashad Penny. Like they just did not want to tackle him. They couldn't tackle him, and it just seemed to be a big factor here in week 4 against the struggling Raiders. Not just the Raiders, the struggling Raiders here, who haven't really been as good as they can be on either side of the ball. So it's like, where do I trust the Broncos now? Like before I can trust their defense, now I really can't. And even offensively, they just didn't get the job done either. I mean, they moved the ball a little bit more than they normally do. They should against the Raiders, but just still not able to make big plays. Gordon fumbling at going for 6. I mean, it's their own fault, though. I mean, they keep giving Gordon the ball. He keeps fumbling. Same thing happened last week against the Niners. You put the ball on the ground twice, you just don't notice it because the Broncos luckily recovered both those. Otherwise, they lose the game for sure. They were fortunate to win that game. And just stats really won't show a whole lot of it, but Russell Wilson is not playing good football. I mean, he's not playing god-awful in any way. And this game's definitely not only on him. I mean, Gordon can't fumble the ball. They can't let it go for 6. The defense needs to be more physical, needs to tackle, can't play as bad as they did. But Wilson just hanging on the ball. It's the same. He's hanging on the ball way too long. He's sitting in the pocket, hanging on the ball way too long, taking sacks. All those holding calls, you are more likely to see more of those if the quarterback holds the ball longer. It's just more time for the holdings to occur. It's more time for the refs to see the holding, which is the big part because there's holding on every single play. The reason he's holding the ball, he's just refusing to try to make tight window throws, like tough throws. He's refusing to do so. That's probably why he's not throwing interceptions. He's playing bad. He's not throwing interceptions. He needs to get outside the pocket more if he doesn't want to let go of the ball. His best moments are when he scrambles, are when he runs. Like last week against the Niners when they finally clutched up on offense, what got them down there, him running. He had a couple good throws. He finally unleashed one to Hamler at the end. Kind of like felt too late. I mean, the defense had to get a stop. They couldn't get a stop. But, just not wanting to get rid of the ball, not wanting to get outside the pocket, taking sacks. Some of those holdings are on him. Believe it or not, they are on him. Like I said, if the longer you hold the ball, the more likely it's going to happen. That's what they're going to say in that room, too, and that staff is thinking the same thing. So he needs to play a lot better. And we're kind of getting to that point where, all right, when's he going to play better? When are they going to get it together here? And they're 2-2. They don't even feel they look like a bad football. They're playing like a bad football team right now. They don't even feel 2-2. They were fortunate to beat the 49ers. Even the Texans game was close. And the Raiders have really been struggling, and they went out there and scored 32 and just outplayed the Broncos completely in that game, even though the Broncos had a shot in the end. Carr only threw for like 180 or so, 88 yards, 188 and give or take, and they didn't need to do much. They just ran the ball on them. They just were more physical of a team. And Adams clutched up here and there for them, obviously. But, Adams clutched up here and there for them, obviously. Still some red zone issues maybe, and they could have scored even more points, the crazy part. But I like the way the defense was called in this game. Not that the defense played completely lights out, but I like the moments where they blitzed, different looks, so I like that. But Raiders get their first win. It's a big one because you played a division rival in Las Vegas. You got to win it. They win it, so they just outplay the Broncos in this one. It's just Broncos is extremely disappointing. That's the main takeaway from this. It's like Wilson's been extremely disappointing. Just got to get the damn ball out. He's like afraid to make some of these big time throws for some reason. It's driving me nuts. But then the thing is, at least we could trust the defense, right? Based off the last few weeks, I know the offense is extremely disappointing. At least we could trust the defense, right? And no, I guess we can't. I know that, and then even making things even worse, they had some injuries at the end. Well, Javonte Williams not part of the defense, obviously, but he went down by far their best running back. But they weren't getting the ball enough to. But Randy Gregory goes down at the end. It wasn't a big factor in this game, but he goes down at the end. And that's tough, obviously, for going forward. They play on Thursday. They're missing Justin Simmons, but still, there's something just still not right in there. It's been tough. And then Sunday Night Football, was not expecting the 41-31. I was confident about the Buccaneers getting some offense going. I was right about that. What I was wrong about was the Buccaneers defense allowing 41 points, not see that happening. It is tough to start the game fumbling an opening kickoff. That is not why the Chiefs won, but it is pretty tough to overcome that. And the Chiefs get a free touchdown basically right away. Fumble, and then basically the Chiefs started with the ball at the 20-yard line. That's what happened, and they get the ball in the second half. So you just can't start with that. And then they had that strip sack early in the game when it felt like they were going to get some momentum back. Strip sack at the 20. Those two things were massive in this game. I know the Chiefs' offense still was kind of just taking whatever they wanted against the Bucs, and that was a big factor. But this actually could have been, a Seahawks Lions shootout if the Buccaneers didn't make those mistakes, because they were able to move the ball. And you wake up this morning and you see people ripping the Bucs because they couldn't get the run game going. There was no run game, but they were down big instantly. They couldn't run the ball. They could have ran the ball a little bit more. I think it was like 3 carries for Fournette, but it's pretty difficult when you're trying to save clock and the Chiefs can score at any time, and that is why. It's not like they have a bad running game. Like, no, you can't make that takeaway from this game. Absolutely not. People are trying to, but the Buccaneers, they put things together on offense. Finally, it's just the defense was not themselves. The Chiefs, just insane. Just the way it was called. How smooth, how fast it is, how fast that offense is. It's like that looks like the best thing in football. Like, you take a look at things, you take a look at units. That looks like the very best. Like, when it happens, I don't know what happened last week against the Colts. They were a little sloppy at the end of that game, which they could have won, but it's still not a good game overall. But the Buccaneers and the Colts got a pretty good defense, but I'm still confident the Buccaneers have a better defense, and you're just able in Tampa, prime time Sunday Night Football. You're able to do that. Like, it's a little crazy, based off last week to this week, like how unpredictable it is. But we know the Chiefs are good. They were very good in this game. They got everyone going. Pacheco got going. That Mahomes flipped Edwards-Helaire was just ridiculous. And Mahomes, I keep calling him a magician. I think a lot of people call him that. It's like, that's what it is. Like, it's the way you can't sack him, the way he avoids sacks, the way how strong he is, you can't bring him down, the way he's able to just create guys open, make those crazy plays while he's getting sacked. It's just ridiculous. So it's a beautiful thing to see when it's on. I just don't get why it wasn't on last week. Early season things, maybe. Why? What happened last week? That's kind of the problem there. But yeah, tough one for the Bucs. They are 2-2, so that's tough. But yeah, that's just outstanding showing for the Chiefs offense and a big time win, again, way prime time. So just massive. But that wraps up the week 4 recap takeaways. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on some games. If you think I missed on something, we're always talking about you guys on Twitter. Make sure you follow Sarah. There's a link pinned in the comments for that. A lot of important links pinned in the comments, so check those out. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Full NFL coverage, always adding more content, especially going forward here. Good stuff planned here, so join us. That'll do it, though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.